Welcome back, Defenders. It certainly feels like the Russians are trying to set a record. Russian losses in Ukraine for just the month of October could hit 40,000. This is according to Estonian intelligence. Ukraine's general staff reported on October 25th that Russian forces had suffered 1,630 casualties in a single day, surpassing the previous second highest tally of 1,500 on October 18th. And even if you think Ukraine is overcounting, over-reporting Russia's losses, you can just look at the independent observers. There are people online visually tracking all pictures and videos of both Russian losses and Ukrainian losses. And this month has been astonishing. And it's not difficult to understand why. Why are the Russians taking so many casualties? And it's because they're on the offensive everywhere. They're attacking in Kursk. They're attacking in Kharkiv. They're attacking towards Kupiansk, trying to get to the Oskil River. They're attacking towards Chasiv Yar. They're attacking towards Toretsk. They're attacking towards Pokrovsk. And they're attacking past the village of Vuhledar. Russia is pushing their military to the max right now to shape the political discussion, with elections occurring in Moldova, elections occurring in Georgia, elections in Romania and the United States. This is Russia's moment, they believe, to project strength. And the idea of projecting strength for the Russians is meat assaults. Just send your soldiers to their death on failed attacks every single day until a Ukrainian trench position just runs out of ammunition. This is horrific, this is brutal, this is inhumane of the Russians, but they think this is their best chance. Their best chance to intimidate the West, to just surrender. Force Ukraine just to surrender, give them everything they want. So one, Russia can't do this forever. They don't have the stockpiles of equipment. They also don't have the manning. And the third aspect is the weather is turning. The rainy season in Ukraine is here, it's mud season. Here's a video of a Russian soldier showing what happened to his dugout.
Опять заливает. Я еще разобрать с этим не смог. Все, опять заливает. Вот оно. В итоге, короче, все валяется, ничего не достать. Достал наконец-таки броню. Больше ничего. Вообще просто. Ты поймешь, чего. И так.
This problem is not unique to the Russians. The Ukrainians are experiencing these difficulties with the mud as well. But you're not going to be on the attack successfully when all the roads and fields turn into a marsh. Let's check in on those North Koreans. Russian parliament ratifies defense treaty with North Korea. It is now official. North Korea and the Russians are now military allies, bound by treaty to defend one another should they choose to go to war. This is not good for the world. North Korean forces mass in Kursk to help Russia drive Ukraine out. There was the question, where are these guys going to be deployed for combat operations first? Would they be sent to the occupied territories? And it seems like Russia wants to introduce these North Koreans to the war zone with a test run on Russian soil. So they're going to be used in the Kursk region first. Next question is when? North Korean troops will join Russia's war against Ukraine on the 27th or 28th. This is according to President Zelensky. So that's today or tomorrow. These North Korean men will be used in their first meat assault. The sooner they die, the less food the Russians have to feed them, so Russia doesn't really care about these soldiers at all. And I'm going to explain to you in this video why this is going to be a disaster for these North Korean soldiers, but especially these Russian soldiers in charge of basically escorting and babysitting them. Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin have underestimated the cultural differences and the language barrier to get these North Korean soldiers to be of any use to Russia. Translator to be assigned to every 30 North Korean soldiers. This is according to Ukraine's military intelligence. There's not a lot of people in Russia that speak Korean with a North Korean dialect, accent, and understanding of their unique vocabulary. It's separate from South Korea. How many people in North Korea have learned Russian? Not many. So let me give you one example of the cultural and language difficulties that these two nations are going to suffer. In the English language, we have 12 verb tenses. 4 for present, 4 for past, 4 for future. For people trying to learn English, this is exhausting and infuriating that we have so many verb tenses that are used in different situations to express properly what we want to express in English. In Korean, just 3: past, present, and future. Each tense can be modified, though, to show different levels of politeness and formality. This is what I think people don't understand about the Korean language. They conjugate their verbs and their adjectives based on politeness and formality. So how many different verb tenses of politeness and formality exist in the Korean language? And there's 6: formal, semi-formal, polite, familiar, intimate, and plain. So in English, we express ourselves with verb tenses to be very specific about what we want to communicate. But in Korean, they don't care about that. They care about communicating politeness and formality. And for someone who's never studied the Korean language, you just don't understand how important this is to these people. This is how their brains function in North Korea. Based on their language, all their verbs are conjugated based on politeness. So for a Russian translator who maybe took 2 years of Korean, he's not going to do this correctly. Maybe there are North Korean translators who have learned Russian, like they're going to have to borrow from both countries to try and make this work. But this is never going to work on this scale. 12,000 North Korean soldiers, 1:30 ratio means 400 translators. I just don't think there are 400 people available who speak fluently Russian and the North Korean dialect. I can give you some more examples based on the diverging path of South Koreans and North Koreans and their language. South Koreans just adopted English words as new technology came into existence. The South Korean word for television is television. The South Korean word for taxi is taxi. The South Korean word for radio is radio. But in North Korea, to maintain the purity of their language, they had to introduce their own unique Korean words for all new technologies, all new words that come from technology or medicine or science are usually English words with a Latin root. So this is a communications nightmare in which these North Korean men are going to be spoken to disrespectfully by their Russian overseers attempting to translate this and that. On top of this being a war zone, where there's scarcity, where people are injured, where people are dying, this is absolute chaos, where there would be cultural misunderstandings under the best circumstances, let alone what the Russians are going to do to these guys and ask these guys to do. They don't see it coming. On top of all this, the Russians are racist. The Chinese are here. Russian troops react to North Koreans' arrival. In an intercepted call, a Russian soldier expressed doubts about North Korean troops' integration. 1 translator for every 30 troops? Where will we find senior personnel for them? So if you're a Russian man and you're racist towards Ukrainians, you say, Ukrainians don't exist, these people are actually Russian. Then yeah, to that average Russian commander, what's the difference between a Chinaman and a North Korean? So yeah, they're going to be racist towards these guys, which is just going to inflame tensions even more. And they haven't even started combat operations, and we're already getting intercepts about disagreements. So this is a intercepted phone call by Ukrainian intelligence of Russians on the phone talking about the North Koreans. I want to effing kill him after the Koreans. During this conversation, the Russian occupiers express a hostile attitude towards the fighters from the DPRK and resents the orders to provide them with armored vehicles. So this conversation, I'll link it down below. This is two Russian men talking about logistics and finding vehicles for these North Korean soldiers. North Korea didn't bring their own stuff. The Russians are in charge of equipping them. And these guys, who have their own limitations, their own problems, their own scarcity issues, are being told by their Russian commanders to give their stuff to the North Koreans. So they have some vehicles, so they have some rations, they have some ammunition. And this is upsetting the Russians, who already don't feel like they're being properly supported by their military. This is not going to go well. On top of that, North Korean defectors. So these are North Korean people who served in the military. They escaped North Korea, they made it to the south. They're putting out videos, they're putting out propaganda, speaking in a North Korean dialect, using North Korean language to communicate to these guys in Russia. You don't have to do this. If you're just willing to surrender, you can reach freedom in South Korea. I'm a former North Korean officer. I know exactly what you're going through. Surrender, and you'll be safe. So this is a North Korean officer who defected to the South. This is his message that he put out on the internet, that hopefully someday some of these North Korean soldiers might be able to see. Fellow soldiers of the Korean People's Army, my name is Lee Hyung-sung. I once served in the 4th Corps Artillery Reconnaissance Battalion and the General Staff Department, 15th Combat Technique Research Institute. None of this means anything to me, but I imagine North Korean soldiers know about these units, know about these locations. In 2004, I trained alongside comrades from various divisions of the Storm Corps for 6 months at the 15th Research Institute. I am sending this message to you with a heartfelt plea. The war in Ukraine, initiated by Russia, is a crime against humanity. There is no reason for you to sacrifice your lives on a foreign battlefield. Kim Jong-un is merely using your lives as a bargaining chip to pocket millions of dollars in secret funds. So Kim Jong-un is collecting the salary for these 12,000 North Korean soldiers. None of them are seeing any of the money. None of their families back in North Korea are seeing any of the money. The war you are fighting is not one of justice, nor is it for the defense of your homeland. It is not for yourselves, your parents, or your siblings. It is a cruel crime driven solely by Kim Jong-un's greed and a desire to maintain power. Comrades, if you seek freedom and take a broader look at the world, you will realize with deep clarity how we have been deceived by the Kim family's 3-generation regime throughout our lives. There are other choices for you, and there is a new path ahead. If you have the courage to choose freedom, a world where you no longer need to risk your lives without cause, this will be waiting for you. Where there's a will, there's a way. I imagine this North Korean defector is 100% sincere. He knows the tragedy that is his home country and how all these North Korean men are currently suffering under the Kim regime. He speaks their language, he speaks their culture, and I think this was a very impassioned plea that I hope on the internet somebody on Telegram will eventually share it with these North Korean soldiers inside Russia. So let's now switch to talking about America's oligarchs. Elon Musk reported to be in ongoing conversations with Vladimir Putin. The Wall Street Journal says the nature of these conversations is being closely guarded, with only select members of the US government aware of their ongoing dialogue. This news story broke 2 days ago, and Elon Musk has not denied it. Elon Musk tweets all day, every day. This is one of the top news stories in the world. This man has an opinion on everything, but he's not denied it. He's not denied that he's been in ongoing phone conversations with Vladimir Putin. And this is not okay. Vladimir Putin is an internationally wanted war criminal. So to have conversations with him, Elon Musk currently has a security clearance with the US government because he has defense contracts with SpaceX with the United States military. This man has to report to his unit security monitor or whoever is in charge of handling his security clearance any foreign contacts he has. Now, he's a very wealthy man with connections all over the world. He's not going to remember them all or mention them all. But Vladimir Putin is an internationally wanted war criminal whose country is being hostile towards our democratic allies everywhere, really. So for Elon Musk to not mention this or explain this or reveal this, journalists had to figure it out independently. Elon Musk is playing a very dangerous game, and we can speculate why. I think he's going to publish a tell-all someday why he did all this. But yeah, he's 100% behind the Russians. He's been supporting Russia in every way he thinks he can for the last 2.5 years. And at the moment, he's using every ounce of his wealth and power and every minute of his time to help Donald Trump get elected, because Donald Trump is going to do everything the Russians want. Russia is working with Elon. Elon is working with Trump. Trump is working with the Russians. I don't know how to connect these dots for people any stronger here. So I was tipped off 2 years ago when he initially made this post. This was like the 3rd or 4th month of the war. And Elon Musk out of nowhere tweeted his Ukraine-Russia peace deal. Redo elections in the annexed regions under UN supervision. Russia will leave if that's the will of the people. That's nonsense. Crimea. This is the big one. Crimea, formerly part of Russia, as it has been since 1783 until Khrushchev's mistake. This was the clearest indicator that Elon was talking to the Russians, and only listening to the Russians going back 2 years ago. He also said water supply to Crimea assured, and Ukraine never joins NATO, remains neutral. Yes, in 1954, within the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev internally transferred the territory of Crimea from the Russian SSR to the Ukrainian SSR. Ukraine gave up some of their internal territory for this exchange. Elon doesn't want to talk about that. But this was 70 years ago. We're not going back. We're not redrawing the lines. If we're talking about, well, this territory used to belong to the Kremlin, this used to belong to the Russian Empire, it should belong to the Russian Federation today, well, those conversations are never going to end. Because the Russian Empire at one point, going back to 1783, they controlled a lot of people, and they controlled a lot of territory. Crimea is not special. Crimea is not more deserving of being transferred back to Russia than Poland or the Baltics or Finland or Armenia or Kazakhstan. We're not entertaining these claims. 1991 was the cutoff. That's when the lines were peacefully redrawn and all sides agreed. We're not going back to 1783. And if you think Nikita Khrushchev made a mistake, what about Tsar Alexander II, who sold Alaska to the United States in 1867? If we're respecting territorial claims from 1783, why not 1867? Does Elon Musk and Donald Trump support giving Alaska back to the Russian Empire? That's how stupid this is. That's how laughable these historical claims are, and I'm not entertaining them. I can give you a million examples from the last 2 years that clearly showed Elon has been working for the Russians this entire time. Next example I want to share with you is Margarita Simonyan thanking Elon. After Elon bought Twitter, he removed the public-funded media from all of RT News' accounts, and Margarita Simonyan was suppressed in the search. Her tweets were not being promoted by Twitter. Elon changed all that. All the Russians were now fully protected, treated as equals on the Twitter platform in ranking and searches and everything. Margarita Simonyan, this is the Russian, here's the translated. Twitter delabeled me and all of our channels as public-funded media. Now you can even find me in search. Brotherly Elon from the heart. This is the sanctioned head of RT News thanking Elon as a brother from her heart. And I know it's easy for people to counter this and say, well, why should they be treated differently? They should have the same ranking or functionality as anybody else on Twitter. Twitter is banned in Russia. Ordinary Russians can't be on Twitter. They don't have freedom of speech. They're not allowed to participate in the global discussion on Twitter. The only Russians on Twitter are paid propagandists by the Kremlin. Why is this okay? Why is Elon okay with Twitter being banned in Russia? Russians can't use Twitter, but all of the Kremlin paid-for propagandists are now being promoted by the Twitter algorithm. There are also clips. Here's Olga on Kremlin State TV talking about how much she appreciates Elon Musk. This is a clip from Russian Media Monitor. It's 3 minutes. I'll link it down below. For the last 2 years, Elon Musk has been making fun of President Zelensky, calling him a beggar, calling him, as Trump's language, the greatest salesman in history because democracies around the world are trying to support Ukraine. And if we can be honest, guys, I know I get the comments, why are you still on Twitter if you don't want to support Elon Musk? Twitter loses money. Twitter is costing Elon money and making him poor every single day it operates. He's fine with that. He's paying for a benefit, promote Trump, promote Russia. But if you drive a Tesla, if you own a Tesla, if you were thinking about buying an electric vehicle and were considering Tesla, at this point you're supporting fascism. Within the next decade, Elon Musk probably will be the world's first trillionaire, and he's going to become a trillionaire because of Tesla. They're fantastic cars. I understand people who buy them and drive them love them. But Elon Musk is using all the wealth he's accumulating from Tesla to destroy the NATO alliance, to weaken Western democracy. I'm not entertaining this anymore. If I meet somebody who drives a Tesla, to their face, I'm going to tell them, that's a stupid car, and you're enabling a fascist. It's harsh. People are going to get upset. I know people have special relationships with their vehicles. It makes them very happy to have mobility and freedom and to be able to drive around. People want to believe they're helping the environment or they're benefiting society by driving electric vehicles. But Elon was lying the whole time. The guy doesn't talk about climate change anymore. He doesn't talk about the environment. He's never cared about disrupting the fossil fuel industry. All he's ever wanted to do was make a cool car. And 15 or 16 years ago, he went with electric vehicles because he thought that would be interesting, that would be fun. It has nothing to do about saving the environment anymore. So we're 9 days from the election, and the good news is, ignore the polls. The Trump campaign is paying for fake polls to skew the national data. Look at the early voting totals. High voter turnout means Trump is going to lose. Low voter turnout means Trump is probably going to win. And all indications is this is going to be record turnout for voting here in the United States. In Pennsylvania, Democrat ballots returned. We don't know the votes, but we know the party affiliation. 59% of ballots returned are from Democratic voters, only 30% being Republicans. The Democrats in Pennsylvania almost have a 500,000 vote lead before Election Day. We can go to the other battleground states. For example, in Georgia, 2.2 million people have already voted in the state of Georgia. And once again, we don't know who they voted for, but we have other demographic breakdowns. And this is interesting for gender. 55.7% of early voters are female, and only 44% are male. For my international viewers, I wish I could tell you that NATO and Ukraine and Russia was the #1 issue that people are voting on, but it's not. A lot of young women in America are registering to vote and voting for the first time because Trump appointed Supreme Court justices that outlawed abortion. Everyone has their issues. You can go through the top 5 or whatever. But what is going to drive non-voters to the polls? Undecided voters towards Kamala Harris. And Trump making abortion illegal in like 20-some states, that is getting young women out to vote in record numbers. These are Beyoncé fans. These are Taylor Swift fans. These are Billie Eilish fans. People who have all endorsed and are campaigning for Kamala Harris right now. So it's good news. We got 9 days to go, but I am confident Trump is going to be defeated. Once again, the polls are lies. Just look at the early voting data, and it's all good for Kamala Harris. So let's get to the bad news for Russia. Russia lost some more helicopters. A Russian Mi-2 helicopter crashed in the forest in the Kharkiv region. The Russians also lost an Mi-28 helicopter close to the Kursk Strait. This was confirmed by Russian bloggers, so we don't know the reason for the crash, just that it crashed. Unknown gunman attacks a Russian military convoy near Grozny. A member of Russia's National Guard was killed in an attack on a military vehicle on Thursday on the outskirts of the Chechen capital in the North Caucasus. There's a video, I'll link it down below, but something weird's going on in Chechnya, with Kadyrov declaring this blood feud with Russia Duma senators from his neighboring 2 provinces, Dagestan and the other one. This is a prelude. These people hate each other and they want to fight with each other. They're just waiting for the Kremlin and central control to break down, where they can then settle their ancient blood feuds, whatever. Let's now do a quick update on elections. Moscow funneled $39 million into Moldova ahead of their presidential election in an attempt to influence the results. I think Moldova's doing okay. Despite Russia's interference, the EU constitutional amendment still passed, and the pro-Western president, there's a runoff election on November 3rd, but I think everything will be okay. And she probably is going to win. Georgia is a different situation. Georgia thrown into political turmoil after a disputed vote. Official tallies on Sunday show the ruling pro-Russian party got 54% of the votes. All sides claim victory in Georgian election as exit polls give a different result. So based on exit polling of voters, the opposition won. But the official ballot tallies being counted show the pro-Russian party winning. This is what it looks like. This blue is the Georgian Dream Party. This is the pro-Russian party. And here's the vote total for all the other opposition parties to the pro-Russian party. So how did Russia do it? And I'm going to reveal the secrets. How to rig an election in a small country. And the first thing the Russians did is they just paid people to commit acts of violence, just beat up election observers, beat up poll workers in precincts you think aren't going to vote your way. But if you're getting into the polls, they have party affiliation in Georgia, meaning the poll worker knows what party you belong to, which party you registered with. And for anybody who was a registered voter with the Georgian Dream Party, the pro-Russian party, when they went to vote at certain polling locations, the poll workers just gave them an extra ballot. They were given 2 ballots to vote with. Two votes for me, 0 votes for you. That is how elections are run in Russia. On top of that, poll workers were spoiling ballots. And how you do this, it's not difficult. On the ballot, make a tiny dot in the bubble for the pro-Russian party. This is the Georgian Dream. So when you then hand out this ballot, someone might not notice the dot. If they're a pro-Russian voter, they'll circle in the bubble, there's no problem. But if they vote for any other party, they fill in this bubble, for example, the machine will detect a mark for this party, the true vote of the voter, and it'll notice the dot. And it'll say you voted twice. This ballot is now invalidated. Neither vote will count. So this was done on a massive scale to invalidate the votes for people who voted against the pro-Russian party. And if all those other things fail, you just assault the poll workers and stuff the ballots. So despite all this rampant cheating, the Russians in Georgia still barely won, still barely got a majority. And the Kremlin slams Western interference in the Georgian election. There could be a color revolution. Georgians could take to the streets in response to these allegations of the Russians interfering with their election, but I don't think anything's going to come of it. I think for Georgia to be free, Russia has to collapse. They just have too much money, too much influence, too many Russian citizens living in Georgia for the Georgians to ever break away from the Russian influence. Ukraine has to win for Georgia to be free. One piece of good news real quick. Norway allocated $105 million for Ukrainian energy infrastructure recovery. Thank you so much to the people of Norway. Final video I want to share with you is from a fella, Rodrigo Figueiredo. He's with NAFO. And he received his MUGA hat from St Javelin. And I want to share with you his video showing off his new hat.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rodrigo Figueiredo. Today is the 25th of October, 2024. And I'm very happy, very proud to show off my Make Ukraine Great Again hat, MUGA. Yeah, baby. I've been waiting for months for this one. This is the, as you can see, St Javelin's hat, original, made in Kharkiv, Ukraine, a city that is only 30 kilometers away from Russian border, that every day is being bombed, that there are electricity shortages, water shortages, and all types of limitations produced by war. And I've been to Kharkiv, I know how it is, and I'm so proud to contribute, even if it's in this small way, to the resilience, the heroic resilience and resistance of the Ukrainian people. Slava Ukraini!
There are several places on the internet you can buy your own MUGA hat if you want, but if you want to make sure the MUGA hat was manufactured in Ukraine, you can go on St Javelin's website. I'll put the link down below. They are showing the MUGA hat is currently sold out, but if enough people, I think, pre-order again, they'll produce more. Okay, that's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.